A big story this week has to do with the number of states that had fast food workers walk out on the job. And they did that to protest the low wages that they've been making for a long time now. In fact, we have a report that explains a little more. Let's take a look.
Walkouts by fast food workers are spreading around the country. This week, thousands of employees have gone on strike for a day. More picketing is expected today in Milwaukee. The movement is about money. The workers want higher pay, up to $15 an hour. Right now, they're making half of that, about $7.50, and they want the right to join a union. Fast food business owners say higher wages would lead to fewer jobs.
Now, it's really fascinating when you look at how minimum wage has not kept up with inflation in the country, how people are really struggling to make ends meet. In fact, some statistics that'll kind of blow your mind. The nationwide turnover rate among fast food employees is about 75% a year. And the reason why is because people are unhappy with their jobs. They don't feel any loyalty for the companies that they work for. They're not being treated appropriately, so they feel like, whatever, I'm going to leave and try to find something better. Oftentimes, some of these workers don't find better jobs because there isn't really much out there, especially if you are graduating into a bad economy or if you're a low-skilled worker. So that's a big problem. Also, none of the nation's 200,000 plus fast food restaurants are unionized. So that's another thing that these fast food workers are fighting for. And the median pay for fast food workers nationwide was about $9.05 an hour. Now, if you want to talk about inflation, adjusted for inflation from its historic high in 1968, the minimum wage today would be more than $10.55 an hour, but as you guys know, it's usually around $7.50. It differs from state to state. So what I do want to talk about a little bit is a fast food restaurant. It's not a chain yet, but it's a fast food restaurant called Moo Cluck Moo. It's just outside of Detroit, and they are trying to change the way fast food workers are being treated. They are paying their workers, about 12 people, $12 an hour. So that's not a living wage. $15 is a living wage, but still, I mean, they're not being forced to do it. And the head of the company says, "Look, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do." So let's talk about this a little bit. Lynn, first question goes to you. Do you see the business model of companies like Moo Cluck Moo spreading throughout the country, or are we going to continue having these protests that lead to nowhere?
I do see it spreading, but it is going to be through popular demand. Just sort of the not testing on animals, the sweatshop clothing. I see that sort of the human rights in terms of how we get our services and our goods becoming more and more important. So it won't just spread on its own. It will spread because we as the consumers will demand it.
So do you guys think that consumers are going to demand it? Because if we increase the amount of money people pay for, if we increase the amount of money that businesses pay their employees, some of that cost is going to be shifted onto the consumer. So consumers know that. Do you think that they're going to fight for fast food workers' rights? Malcolm?
Well, I think this is part of a much larger struggle, which one of the core elements is healthcare. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason, I mean, if you, last week, McDonald's, I think, put out a paper, or somebody revealed that McDonald's was telling their employees their budget, how to budget, and that this required that the employees not only have a full-time job at McDonald's, but also practically a full-time job somewhere else, and just for them to get by. And if you look at the whole budget, they had allocated that their employees could spend $20 a month on healthcare. And I mean, I have 3 children. I spend $20 a month, I think, on Dora the Explorer Band-Aids. I mean, just that alone. So they're crazy if they think that, obviously, and everyone made fun of them, and Stephen Colbert made fun of them and everything, and they deserved it. But what we don't realize is that these people, they might be able to survive on that kind of wage potentially if they had healthcare, if we had universal healthcare. I mean, I think the minimum wage is too low; it needs to be raised anyway. But if we don't have universal health care, just the idea that in this country, the wealthiest country in the world, people can't just know that if something goes wrong, they can just go to the doctor, for crying out loud. And other countries, I mean, the other Western countries look at us and they think we're crazy to have a healthcare system like we do. And all these people who are on the brink, and if they can't, they can't miss a day at work because their child is sick, or they lose their job, and then they can't take the kid to the hospital either.
Are you denying that America is the best country in the world? Is that what you're doing right now?
USA, USA. I'm sorry.
You'll never be Secretary of State.
Yeah, I had to make up for that. But so I think it's tied into a larger struggle that the minimum wage. One of the things that I read about in researching this segment is that you talked about inflation, and the minimum wage, if it had gone up with inflation, would be $10 something. But if the minimum wage had accelerated with productivity in this country, it would be like
would be
$16, like
much
much
higher.
higher.
Yeah.
And so we've had this massive increase in productivity in this country. The minimum wage or wages have been stagnant. And where is that? If you look at a chart, where is that all that extra that gap in there? It's all going to the top.
Well, yeah, and that was going to be my point, was the difference between a small business with 12 employees, where you can structure your money and you have a different relationship with your employees, versus these global, I mean, McDonald's, I can't even imagine the amount of money their CEO makes.
About $8 million a year.
Yeah, and so you know, when you have that so top heavy like that, I mean, their priorities are very different. Their priorities are Wall Street priorities, basically. They're not people oriented, they're money oriented. And I think, you know, slowly we're seeing this transition you were talking about, where people are concerned about the quality that everyone has in their life and the quality of goods, and where's my money going to. You know, slowly these people, and I'm in that group too, we are getting a little more political clout in this country, and we're changing policies very slowly. But on a local scale like that, it's exciting.
What about unions? Because another thing that they're fighting for is the right to unionize, and that is a part of the story that I actually love, because we're like in this weird phase in America where we've forgotten the importance of unions. We of course have Republicans that make unions seem like they're thugs. People like to demonize public education because of the unions. But now you have fast food workers that are just dying for the opportunity to unionize, and they really want to emphasize the importance of that. And Lynne, you know, do you have anything to say about the importance of unions, and what do you think? Do you think that at some point in the country we're going to move toward liking them again and not demonizing them?
Yeah, I mean, I have a long history with you. I was trained by the AFL-CIO, their youth program back in the 90s, so I was a trained union organizer, and so I have a huge allegiance and think they are of tremendous value. And, you know, they gave us the 5-day work week. They gave us no child labor. On the other hand, I do think that unions can overstep their role. And I think we're seeing, particularly with law enforcement unions, where they are overstepping their role. And I think that the teachers' unions as well sometimes aren't necessarily working in the interest of the kids. Put all that aside, there are some places where I think we will always need unions, and new sectors, especially low-wage service sectors, especially need unions. And if we're going to ever close the gap between the rich and the poor that has gotten that much larger over the last several decades, it's going to be in the service sector. And so we're going to have to start paying living wages to folks who work in the service sector. The manufacturing jobs are not coming back. So I think that unions play an important role.
Well, and I was thinking about that because, you know, the middle class, the manufacturing jobs have gone away, and a lot of the middle class is deteriorating in this country. And these jobs used to be starter jobs. You went to college and you worked at McDonald's. You know, it was a starter. It was a temporary thing. Now people are, trying to raise families on these wages.
It's insane.
It is totally insane because, you know, people who used to get other types of jobs, which did pay 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour, those jobs are gone.
Yeah,
they're just gone.
But the problem is, guys, and we haven't talked about this enough, we need to cut taxes for the wealthiest corporations. Yes. That way they can focus more of their resources on creating jobs. Yes. All right, we've been doing that for a while now, and it hasn't worked. No. When is the government going to wake the fuck up? And Americans as well, wake up. I mean, we need to fight authority here. That's where it all starts from, and we need to get money out of politics. I mean, that is the root of all evil in the country.
One of the things that I find so frustrating about this debate is that it's the same, the minimum wage debate, it's the same argument over and over and over again. We don't tag the minimum wage to inflation or productivity or anything, so we have to have this fight every time we talk, and it's, you could recycle the exact same quotes on the House floor from the last time, and the time before that, and the time before that, and they all say, oh, it's going to cost jobs, and so on and so forth. The fast food industry seems to be doing okay in this country.
Yeah.
They seem to have managed.
Yeah.
And the other thing they say is that we're going to automate. We're going to automate,
right.
And so people are going to lose their jobs.
Less jobs, right.
But I'm thinking, is McDonald's not installing, automated, cash registers for the customers to use because they care about their workers so much?
Right.
Is that really, because we really do care? No, they would do that in a second.
They would.
If they thought it was going to be profitable. So don't give me that malarkey. There, you like malarkey?
Thank you.
We were talking before the show.
All right.
Kelly likes the word malarkey.